Welcome back, everybody, to episode 11 of the Wild Faith podcast. My name is Evan Bungham, and I have my co-host Luke Timmons with me today. We have an awesome episode with some very, very special guests talking about Minnesota Fishing Opener. It is a tried and true tradition here in the great state of Minnesota, and it is the week of opener, and we are excited to bring a lot of wealth of knowledge and some wisdom and insight into just the beauty of creation with great outdoors fishing and some really good tips and tricks out on the lake. So without further ado, Luke, how you doing, man?
Doing good. We're doing good. I cannot complain, man. God is good, and
amen.
Yep. It's been we've had a lot of rain down here. I feel like every time I do my intro, I talk about the weather, so I'm like
we should be just weathermen. We should just switch the podcast right now, and we're just going to give weather updates. We'll do it we could do it by the day, I guess. Yeah. I mean, you guys might get sick of us, but
no, I mean, it's a lot of rain, a lot of wind, but there's some sunshine now in the forecast here this weekend. So
sounds like really good turkey hunting weather.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yep. No, it's kind of funny because we'll get into it with the episode here with Ryan and Andrew, but for fishing opener for me, I've actually never participated in because I live in
change that.
Yeah, I live in the part of the state where we have basically no lakes, which is funny coming from the land of 10,000.
I'm trying to think.
Natural lakes.
So true, natural lakes. I was going to say, so what county are you still in now?
Olmsted.
Byron?
So no lakes.
I believe Olmsted does Olmsted have lakes?
Zumbro, part of the Zumbro River maybe, but
so growing up though, you grew up in, was it Mauer or Dodge? Dodge. Okay, so I'm pretty sure Dodge is, I can't remember how it goes. It's either Dodge or Mauer County though, is one of the two counties in the state that do not have a lake at all.
Yep. 100%.
So I'm in the same boat as you, man. Like we would go, we'd go up to Pelican Lake. Growing up as kids, we'd make like the 7.5 hour journey, but we would never go up fishing opener. Maybe once we did. Mm-hmm. It was just always so cold. We wait to go until like early June or whatever it was. So it's kind of interesting for both of us. I mean, I guess we would do trout opener.
Yeah.
I mean, but that's a month ahead.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, usually in April, there's still snow on the ground for that. But this year it's been an odd year as far as snow went. But, it's May here and we've had tons and tons. I mean, my backyard's a swamp right now. And so, yeah, but it is fun because it's the beginning of summer here and it's coming and with that, it's, turkey season's in full swing, obviously. And so it's a fun time to be out in the woods. It's a fun time to be out on the water. And like I said, right when I started, God is good. I mean, I was able to take Liam out on a couple hunts now for turkey, and
it's awesome.
It's great.
Oh, it's good, man. I love it. And like I said, we have a exciting episode, and we just want to touch base here before we dive in and let you know that we kicked off our first episode of our 15 episode series for the Bible series. Mm-hmm. And kind of going off of that, our next episode will be diving into the book of Exodus, and it kind of touches base into a really good subject. Going into May now, mm-hmm. we are tapping into Mental Health Awareness Month, which is kind of near and dear to my heart and for a lot of men out there. And I know next month in June technically is Men's Mental Health Awareness Month. And, with that, it shouldn't be just, and that's where it's not funny, but I look at it where we designate all these months and mm-hmm. special days and holidays and stuff. And, for men and for women out there, I definitely think there shouldn't be just a set day or a month. It should be, talked about yearly and daily and mm-hmm. hourly and, encouraging those conversations. But, being in the spirit of what we have going on for the month of May and June, and then obviously we'll touch back into it in November. but we wanted to highlight some episodes and do some cool, have some good guests on, and just kind of bring awareness to what's going on in the world, and just kind of really open up that conversation, which is a hard conversation sometimes. But we're excited to bring that next Bible series to you because it ties perfectly in with that. And without further ado, let's kind of dive into this week's episode. And two awesome guests. I'll give them a little bit of an intro here. It's my brother-in-laws, Andrew and Ryan Murray, who are very well respected fishermen and have some very rich history and stories of fishing up in northern Minnesota, up on Rainy Lake and Rainy River. They're going to give you guys some really good insight and wisdom for tips and tricks for opening weekend. And they have some good stories too. And like I said, Luke and I we don't really have some, traditional Minnesota fishing opener stories, but they sure do. And, we'd love to hear your guys' stories too. So feel free to reach out to all of us and share your stories with us. We want to see them, see some pictures, and just talk with us. Awesome. Well, let's go ahead and dive into it. So without further ado, Andrew and Ryan, boys, how we doing?
Doing real good.
Yeah, we're doing good. It's been awesome to see your guys' podcast take off here over the last month or more, and we're happy to be a part of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, we appreciate you guys being on, and we've got some exciting stuff to talk about. It's fishing opener. It's upon us.
Absolutely. It's probably in Minnesota, after deer season, it is definitely the second most coveted season in terms of, people that will go out and take it on no matter what the weather conditions are, and everybody kind of has their own version of what fishing opener is, but it's always exciting. It's the kickoff to summer and hopefully successful weekend of walleyes.
That's right. That is right. And no, I was laughing with Luke before we jumped on the podcast here, but you guys are lucky enough to say that you guys have built traditions with fishing opener, and we're excited to go through some of those stories tonight. But Luke and I really don't have fishing traditions because we grew up in southeastern Minnesota and we had 0 lakes. So this it'll be fun to kind of go through it. I'm lucky to have been able to fish a couple openers with you guys.
Yeah.
So
yeah, for sure. You guys, you've been able to kind of, start to join in on what we're now creating for, it's kind of like a recycling our tradition now as our kids are older and starting to have rods in their hands and taking a bigger part of it too. So it's fun to get you and the rest of your family in and part of it too.
Oh, I love it. Well, before we dive in kind of the nit and gritty here, just give us, whoever wants to go first, but just give us a little nit and gritty background of where you guys are from, and just kind of how you got into the fishing and the outdoors, and just kind of go from there.
Right, go ahead.
Youngest brother first.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, originally from International Falls, and that's kind of where the roots of our hunting take place, and fishing. Grew up in central Minnesota, but the bulk of our summers were spent in International Falls, going up hockey camps and doing the fishing thing and just hanging out. So that place has always held a special place in my heart and always will. Rainy Lake and Rainy River in particular is kind of where we cut our teeth. And like Andrew said, we're kind of, there was a period of time there where we got away from our original traditions of, every year it was, the Rainy River first thing in the spring going up, and couldn't wait to get your rod in your hands. And like Andrew said, no matter what the weather was, we were out there grinding away. And, after college, kind of got out of that tradition, just moved away for work and, just lifestyle changes. And, now that our kids are starting to get a little bit older, and they're starting to enjoy some of the same things that we enjoy, that's starting to get to be a lot more important to me, is kind of rekindling those things that shaped me as, an outdoorsman, and then B, just as a person. Right. Kind of, I just, so many memories of the things that we experienced, and, be it the uncles or the cousins or grandpa or, brothers, all of those things are becoming more important to me now that I have kids. And, we talk a lot about that, rekindling those relationships and those experiences, and trying to recreate that for our kids, and not necessarily maybe the same traditions, but just having traditions. I look forward to fishing opener and deer season, and, the 4th of July and all of those special events that we'd go up, and every one of those somehow we seem to work a fishing trip into, or a hunting trip into. And just such an important part of my life. And I just want to make sure that I share that same passion with my kids, and, selfishly for myself, and then to get them exposure to it too. So
Love it. That's awesome.
yeah.
And you're a local. I wouldn't say a local, but kind of a local now, up by Rainy and Lake of the Woods. And
Yeah. So I mean, obviously up here we've got Lake of the Woods, and it's an awesome fishery and an awesome body of water, but that is similar to down where you are there. That's the only lake. And so
true.
It's
but it's a good lake though. It's an okay one.
If you're going to have a lake in your backyard, I mean, that's the one. If you're only going to have one. And so, when you talk tactics, growing up on Rainy Lake and Rainy River, there's obviously pretty unique tactics to fishing those bodies of water. And when I first moved up to Lake of the Woods, I kind of started just picking people's brains on, all right, what works up here? Give me the shortcuts, give me the, how do I go catch fish? And they're telling me this stuff. And I'm like, okay, there's no way I'm going to do that. Like, that can't work. Somebody's, they're going to have a camera strapped to my head or something, and it's going to be on America's Funniest Home Videos. And so that's been fun moving up here. I've been up here 9 years now, but learning the new tactics and different style of fishing, and just different methods you can use to go out and enjoy it. And getting the kids involved in that, and deciding, all right, where are we going to go today, guys? What spot of the lake are we going to go to, and what are we going to use? And are we going to pull lead core, or are we going to are we going to troll, are we going to jig? And kind of letting them decide that. And even if I know it's not going to work, we go out and we try it out, and it's like, so it's teaching them. It's kind of, my focus has shifted away from going out and catching all the fish that I can catch, and it's more about letting them take control, letting them drive. And my family, I'm fortunate, my wife also likes to fish, maybe just as much as me and my kids. So on a Saturday, let's jump in the boat, let's go fishing. I don't have to pull them too hard to get them going. So that's been
good.
That's been a huge help too, to just get out and experience things for, introducing the kids to the outdoors, and, sharing that time as a family. And, I do a lot of bow hunting, obviously, and a lot of that is an individual based hobby of mine. So fishing is something we can all share as a family, and so it's kind of a 2-part deal where it's doing something I enjoy and spending time with the family. So,
I love it. And that's awesome. And Andrew, just give us just a little bit about on you, with ABO, and just how you got involved with fishing, and where you're residing now, and all that good stuff.
Yeah. Yep. Obviously Ryan and I grew up with the same passion and same family stuff, with our hunting shack and fishing the Rainy River all up in High Falls. But I kind of took a break from it because I was pretty focused on hockey and the end of my high school, and went and played, college and juniors. And so it was after college, or sort of as I finished college, that I got a bow back in my hand. Special thanks to Don Landecker, if you're listening.
Yeah.
Got me a Coleman bow. That's right, Coleman.
I didn't even know they made those bows.
Yep, Coleman bow.
Make everything.
And I killed what I would have told you at that time was a giant 8-pointer, just north of East Grand Forks on some public land, and then the rest was history. I was hooked after that. I mean, back in and hooked. So I've been fortunate that I have one of my best friends from high school, Isaac Landecker, has been living in Alaska. I did a missions trip in Alaska during those years ending college too. And so I got really familiar with that area. I've done a ton of fishing trips up there, both river fishing and out in the big water. And, Isaac has taken me out and we've done some hunting trips. He owns a plane. So, I've been fortunate with that, obviously. And then, started ABO Outfitters, was really fortunate to meet Jeff and Joe Anderson, a couple of what I would say are fishing studs. You guys came on the fishing trip with me. So they've really, taken my fishing passion and my fishing game to a whole new level, being in the boat with them. I've gone on fishing trips with them into Canada. And then also, being around guys here in the Brainerd area, just elite guides like Tim Hansky and Toby Kabalavog, and obviously Jeff Anderson, and just learning, so many cool tactics from those guys. Like Ryan said, we cut our teeth on Rainy. And so, fishing walleyes on Rainy is totally different, than fishing walleyes down here in central Minnesota, and some of the river fishing that happens, more in southern Minnesota. And so it's just been really fun to learn and grow my passion and my techniques from those guys. And now with the technology that's come online. And so, like Ryan said, now we're in a phase of our lives where we're trying to plug our kids in as much as possible and sort of not reestablish, but get those conditions back in the front and focus of what we're doing, and less of our individual type of stuff. But it's a fun phase, and I love being out there with the kids doing that.
That's awesome. That's good. And like, you both have that's why we have you guys on. You guys have some rich history, just getting out in northern Minnesota, then obviously, which, you guys got cooking here in central Minnesota now too, but just from, where you guys started when you were really young to getting the kids involved now, and love seeing it. Fun. And I get to be a part of it all too, which is awesome.
Right.
I get to learn, because I'll still never forget the first time that we went up fishing on Rainy up in International Falls. I brought you guys, this was back when we were doing BYP, and I think I brought like 20 some hats up there.
Yeah.
Never fishing up there or that far north in my life.
Yep.
Had the full anticipation that we were going to go catch like pike and bass, and I asked him like, what are we going to go fish for? And you guys look at me like I'm dumb, and I'm like, I don't know. It's like, we're going to go catch walleyes.
What
I'm
else
like,
is
I've
there?
never fished for walleyes. And
Yeah.
it's funny because I've changed now, because now that's all I want to fish for. Like in the wintertime, I have zero desire, maybe for crappies, but I have zero desire to fish for literally anything else besides walleyes.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
appreciate you guys for that.
Yeah.
I'll never forget when you came up either, because my family is one that doesn't let anybody lose or slide when it comes to sarcasm or taking a shot. And so Evan came up and he had a tackle box, and the tackle box was full of bass lures, split shots, different things. And he kind of wanted to get geared up for the next day and start tying up what we were going to fish with. And I just remember everyone just giving Evan a hard time about what he had and what he was getting ready to go out fishing with the next day. It was hilarious.
The beetle spins don't work on Rainy Lake.
Yeah, the beetle
No.
spins. Yeah. Yep. That was hilarious.
Oh, that's funny.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And, so just kind of going off of that, for both of you guys, just think of some of those memories. We talked a little bit about kind of the beginning here, just with traditions and stuff. And obviously you guys have had some pretty important people from family and friends that have got you guys both involved in the outdoors. But with Minnesota fishing opener and just that kind of tradition, though, can you guys think of just, a couple memories off the top of your hand of when you guys were younger that really kind of ironed that fire for you guys when you were growing up, that really just solidified that, like we say it's just like the Minnesota gun opener. It's a tradition that's so ingrained in Minnesotans' DNA that it's just second nature. So, I mean, can you guys think of maybe a couple stories where that were significant to either one of you?
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Too many.
Where do we even start, Ryan?
Too many to count.
I
think in its broadest form, I would say obviously it's no secret to anybody, bringing a kid to the outdoors is challenging. And and our dad and our uncles and our grandpa deserve medals for taking us out and putting up with us. And when we'd go out in the boat, it was like, all right, we're going out all day. There's no
day, yeah.
There's no
No.
let's go out for 2 hours and you're cold and let's go home. So I remember, one thing that I remember is obviously in May, the weather's unpredictable. Some years it was 70 and beautiful out and you were in t-shirts, and other years it was 30 degrees and snowing. And we were out one opener and it was mostly rain. And we didn't have any rain jackets, and my dad wasn't going to buy us rain jackets. So we're getting ready to go out, and it's like, we don't have any rain jackets. It's supposed to rain. So my dad busts out 2 55-gallon black trash bags and cuts holes in the top, and we poke our arms through the sides. And I mean, it worked. It worked, and we froze and we didn't get wet, but and that happened more than once. I'm pretty sure. I know several openers we wore the black garbage bags.
That is hilarious.
Yeah.
I do have to ask though, and he's maybe one person I wish I could go fish with and get to know, but what was it like fishing with Grandpa Jack?
I've got a lot of good memories, and I was fortunate enough to fish with him on his last opener.
Mm-hmm.
So the last opener, and I'm so bad with ages. I don't remember how old he would have been. But I remember it was his last opener, and we were in the boat with my dad and my Uncle Terry and me and Aaron and Grandpa Jack. And for whatever reason, I just had that feeling of self-reflection and just, sometimes when in life, you just have those moments where you're like, this is a special moment. You don't know why, but it's like, you just get that gut feeling. And I just remember, and the fishing was terrible. We didn't catch anything. Grandpa caught, I think, a pike, and
Sure.
the fishing was just poor. But like, I just have vivid memories, and there's a couple of pictures of that day, and I think back to that day a lot, especially on opener, and just how special it was to share that day with him, and and other days, but that day in particular just resonates with me so much. And it's funny because the fishing was terrible. I mean, it wasn't like we were throwing walleyes in the boat, but that didn't matter. And for whatever reason, at that moment in time, it didn't matter. But, looking back on it now, it's just a memory that's just solidified in my brain.
That's good.
Yeah. There was with Grandpa Jack, there was also an opener year where the walleye fishing wasn't very good, but the sturgeon fishing was out of control. And up on the Rainy River, and we were catching, Ryan and his friend Charlie Holmberg were catching sturgeon, and they stayed up all night, and they were catching fish after fish after fish all night. And so the next day, instead of going walleye fishing, we just fished from shore and we caught sturgeon. And there's a picture that's hilarious of Ryan and Grandpa Jack holding this 55-inch, 60-inch sturgeon. And Ryan's just laughing. You visibly can see in the picture that he's laughing because Grandpa had tried to hold this sturgeon up, and it had wiggled loose and slapped him in the face in the middle of trying to take this picture. And so he had this way of, when he was so, you could just see in the picture, he was so proud, whether it was holding the stringer of walleyes or holding the buck or whatever, he just had this big proud smile on his face. And there's Ryan holding the tail end of this fish because it had just whapped Grandpa Jack in the face a couple of times. It was hilarious. Yeah. But no, I mean, the fishing opener, I mean, it was always cold, but I mean, it was one of those things that, we would go up and, you'd be retying your line, guys would be taking line off the spool and putting fresh line on for the year. You were sorting through your jig box that by the next day was going to be a mess, and it would be for the rest of the season. Talking strategy about where they were going to fish, even though we went to the same spot every single year and fished in the same spot every single year. And so
did you guys always go to the river? Or did you guys
Always.
go on Rainy Lake too?
No,
Yeah.
we always went to the river.
Always run
Yeah.
the river.
And that was kind of like Ryan said. That was just, I mean, growing up, that was just our tradition. And there was always the same 5 or 6 characters every year. Some years there might have been, a couple of uncles or some other friends or somebody else that came along. But, all the way until Ryan and I kind of went off into college, we did that every single year. And so, the memories are quite honestly endless. There's memories literally from every single year that we could probably go back and have a pretty good chuckle on. But,
good.
But it was awesome. And I mean, I would say more years than not, we would be heading in on Saturday with a full limit. Some years it took longer than others, but it was usually pretty good fishing.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So kind of
Love
going
it.
off of, you guys have both talked about, how obviously, when you were kids, the traditions that you guys are doing, and now, fast forwarding to today when you both have younger kids. So how do you kind of, like, in your minds, kind of ensure that, maybe not the same traditions as you guys had when you were kids, but how do you kind of ensure that some sort of tradition continues to be, so one day when your kids are sitting there, in
Mhm.
20 years on a podcast talking about how
Right.
their dads got them,
Right.
how do you ensure that kind of gets passed down from generation to generation?
It's tough because it's funny because we had this conversation today at work, and obviously I don't want to force my hobbies onto my kids. I want them to enjoy what they want to enjoy. So, I think it's number one, just introducing them to it, letting them experience for themselves. And maybe their hobbies won't be my hobbies. Maybe they won't like to fish, but being patient and allowing them to come with, and just taking a step back. When my kids were old enough to start going, I was still kind of in go mode. Like, I'm going out to the lake and I'm going to be out there all day, and I'm going to fish, and I'm going to do this, and we're going to be trolling and this and that. And then they put a rod in their hands. And if it's not fun for them, they're not going to want to come. And so, number one, making it enjoyable for them, being patient, and then, the rest will come. If they're going to like it, they're going to like it. If they're not, like I said, I don't want my kids to be, something that they're not. If they don't want to fish, I'm cool with that. We'll find hobbies to do together. But, fortunately for me, both of my kids enjoy the outdoors so far, and, we're able to make great memories so far. So.
Yeah. And it's hard, now as
That's
Ryan
awesome.
and I are getting older to try and, now we're trying to kind of bring back or kind of recycle, like I said, the traditions where you're going back as a family. You guys know, kind of as your family changes, and certain uncles are there or they're not there, or you lose property or you gain this property. I mean, you guys, I know, are, you guys experience that too. And so I think the most challenging thing as somebody who loves to fish, and Ryan and I both love to fish and catch fish, is not trying to, make it about necessarily catching a ton of fish. It's about, we're now, the last few years we've gone back and done the river again, up in I Falls. And that's been something that has been really fun. It's a little bit nostalgic because it's back to where Ryan and I did it, but then also getting the kids out in the boat with us and, hopefully, like you said, having those memories be what they remember now, when they're 20 years from now, and so, I hope that, we don't, hit a few rocks or, end up on a few deadheads or have kids fall over the boat or the things that we had to do, but maybe those are the memories that you gotta have in order to be able to tell stories like that. Right. So,
Yeah.
No, and I love that. And, I know both of you guys have a very rich history of growing up fishing with your uncles and your dad and your grandpa, and you've got some hilarious stories that I know about. But just give some advice maybe for some, Luke and I are both young dads, and, like we just got our first boat, knowing that I'm excited to take Nora out fishing this year. But for everybody else that's listening too, that's in the same boat that we are, because obviously you guys are a little bit older than us. Your kids are a little bit older. How do you keep things fun for the kids, when you get out fishing? Because like you said, Ryan, you kind of talked about it a little bit where, when you're out fishing with Grandpa Jack, you guys didn't catch a lot of fish, but it's a memory that you still made.
Mhm.
Like, how do you keep that fun for the kids and still keep it fun for yourself at the same time? I mean, is that like, what is that breakdown for you guys?
Yeah, I think it's about making sacrifices. A story comes to mind. So last year I took Sam up to Ontario trout fishing, and so we were up on snowmobiles, and I got a buddy that knows the area, so he took us up there, and I kind of hesitated on taking Sam. I'm like, he's a little young, and the weather was supposed to be okay, but I'm like, you know what? Let's go up there and try it out. So we went up, and we start fishing, and the fishing's phenomenal. And I'm like, oh, this is great. We're catching trout, and he's having a good time. And we're like an hour and a half into it, and all of a sudden he's like, I'm done. And I'm like, we're not done, bud.
We're way in here.
So him and I, we go up on shore, we build a little fire on the ice, cook some breakfast, just kind of take a break, reset the clock a little bit. And so he's cool with that for a while. So then we go back out and fish a little bit more. And again, the fishing's phenomenal. I'm sitting on shore, cooking breakfast with Sam, and I'm watching those guys out there they're pulling in trout left and right. And it's like, it's killing me, but leaving that trip, it was like, it was a great experience, but he talks about that trip every winter, and obviously my kids play hockey. So, that keeps us pretty busy in the winter, but this whole winter he was ragging on me, Dad, we got to go back up there. We got to go back up there. So I think just keying in on that, making sacrifices, and just, sometimes it's not about, catching the fish for the kids, it's not about holding the rod. Sometimes you just got to drift off the reef and let the kids jump off the back of the boat and screw around a little bit. And, we've done a lot more of that. Andrew and I, and, you, Evan, too, up there on Rainy Lake, like, let's go out and jump off a cliff or do something like that. And when we were kids, we didn't really do a lot of that. If you wanted to jump off, if you were hot, you could jump off the back of the boat, but you better be able to swim, because that boat's not stopping. We're still trolling, and so kids are different these days, and in general, kids are different. So it's just keying in on, what your kid's interest level is in it, and not pushing it too far. Because like I said before, I've done that before with my kids, and it usually has a negative effect, because a 2-hour trip might turn into, it might only be 2 hours, where if you can just take these little breaks, and do these little things to keep them entertained, and then just accept the fact that some days it's only going to last an hour. I can't tell you how many times I pulled my boat to Lake of the Woods, put it in, went out, got fishing, fished for 20 minutes, and went right back home. And you got to be patient, and you just got to be okay with that.
Some awesome words of wisdom right there.
I have a story on that, because Ryan talks about patience. His son was in my boat on Lake of the Woods one day. It was an awesome day. It was like perfectly flat, and we were catching a ton of fish, but Sam was probably only, I don't know, he was maybe 5 at this time. So he was pretty young, but I had my newer boat, my Ranger. And the biggest thing is, like, at that age, you need snacks, more snacks, more snacks, and
100%.
And then something for them to play with. So Sam actually had like these magnetic tiles that he brings in the boat, and he was playing with those. But then he found my stash of sports anchor McRubbers, not the giants, the small ones. And so Sam's the guy that'll get busy in the boat. We were catching fish, so it was kind of like, well, Sam's busy, he's fine. And so he is playing with the sports anchors. Well, he had stuffed about 20 sports anchor McRubbers down my drain hole for my for my live well. And so I go to turn on the live well, and there's all these chunks of rubber spitting up out of the bottom of the thing. And I was like, what the heck? And so now it's still to this day, I still, I've got like the back thing of my Ranger. It's got this automatic to open and close the back plug. And I still think of Sam every time I do that, because it was, but he was entertained, you know, and it's a good memory. So
my favorite part of that trip is that you had all of the kids in your boat and I had all adults in my boat. And yeah, we were catching fish. We were just piling them in the boat, and it was like tough draw.
We talked about, you said sacrifice, right, Ryan? Sacrifice.
Right. That's right. Yeah, you made the sacrifice there. I get another funny story about Sam. We were fishing on Rainy, and it was, I think we had Jack and Sam, and then it was me and Andrew and my dad in the boat. And you know, Ron's he likes to keep fish, and he likes to eat fish. So we were catching, and I don't remember how many, but we had fish in the live well anyway. And Sam was even younger then, 3 or 4, and he was farting around in the live well, and all of a sudden we heard this splash in the back of the boat, and my dad just, what are you doing? Overhauled him about throwing fish back in the water. And you know, it's like, you know, whatever you got to do to keep them entertained. I mean, it's, you know, it's just the plain and simple fact that it's all about patience.
No, I love that. That's so good. And it's, you know, Luke's, you know, we've been busy here at Turkey, and I know Luke's taken Liam out a couple times now. And I think next week will be my first go around with Nora. She is dead set on turkey hunting. I can't convince her not to go, so she wants to go. So I'm gonna pack lots of snacks, and if same thing as that happens last year with me and Luke, if she wants to yell at the turkeys when they come in, I guess that is what it is.
Yep. Making memories.
No, absolutely. Yeah, the snacks thing is 100% the best advice anyone can have, because I thought I brought like 3 or 4 different little snacks, and boy, Liam burned through those in half hour.
No time.
And then he was like, I want something else. I'm like, well, that's it. And we still got about an hour and a half before sunset. So
it's good to have a variety, and it's also good.
Yes.
If you can, another thing I've learned on the hunting side is, you know, take them out of the packages and put them in like a Ziploc bag or
plastic
something.
Bags. Yes.
When they want to open up that baggie of goldfish there, and it's, you know, getting to be killing time. It's like, man.
Yep.
Yeah.
A
little bit more forgiving on the fishing side, obviously, but
no, I love it though. That's some really good advice, and just kind of changing speed here a little bit, diving into some actual nit and gritty like fishing tactics, and however you guys want to go back and forth with it. Give me just a little bit of a taste, since I know both you guys are walleye experts. I will call you, because I give you both credit enough where I've learned everything from you guys. Give me a little bit of what you guys' tactics, you know, even don't have to go back to old school ways, but just even with all the new technology that we have now with forward facing sonar and stuff, like what are some of the tactics you guys are bringing in for, obviously we're all, Ryan and Andrew and I will be up in, we'll be fishing Rainy, but maybe just give us a broad range, you know, from a central Minnesota all the way up to, you know, Rainy Lake, like where we're going to be fishing. Like what are some of the tactics we'll be putting into play for fishing for opener?
Yeah, it'll be interesting this year. The water temps definitely have started to, you know, lakes obviously got ice off early. Water temps are going to be a little bit higher. It's going to be a little bit more of a post spawn fishing situation. But the bay fish are still going to be up shallow. So it'll be from central Minnesota all the way up to northern Minnesota. It's going to be, you know, shallow water. You're going to be catching fish in under 12 feet, and trying to target those sandy gravel areas, you know. And like you said, Evan, now with the new technology, I mean, last year's a great example for me, fishing the grounds that Ryan and I fished growing up. And I use Lowrance, so I've got the sign imaging and active target. And so, we fish kind of the same, tailwater off of the dam, that comes up. It comes up out of the deep pool that's out of the dam, and then it's a flat sandy area, and we fished that to start. And we were catching some fish, but the dam was kind of blowing wide open, so the water was fast there, and it just wasn't that good. And sort of midday, I went and just started scanning around with the active or with the side imaging, and found a bunch of fish in a spot that I had never targeted before. Number one, it's super shallow, and number two, it's sort of way off in a separate, area from off of the main current that we just would have never really looked at. And I just started throwing some plastics in there, and, because there's smallies and pike and stuff that all kind of use the same area. So, I wasn't sure what they were, but right away it was, walleye. So, that's the fun thing with the technology now. I've done openers recently on Mille Lacs or Leech or, on the lakes. And so it's super fun to get out and just, find where those fish are and use that technology, and then, set up and cast at them. And, this time of year when lakes are really clear and there's not a lot of vegetation, you can set up a long ways away from them, and you can really get your bait presentation a long ways away from the boat, and pitching jigs and minnows at them, obviously, or if they're really biting and aggressive, jigs and plastics will still be really effective this time of year. And and then just kind of keep yourself mobile and moving, the fish will be definitely starting to divvy up. They're not going to be in the big schools of females and males like they were, when the spawn was, at mega peak. But so, just continuing to kind of jump to, especially if you're fishing, one of those big fisheries that has a ton of walleyes on it, jumping around and finding those active fish and just keep throwing at them.
Love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think, I agree with Andrew. It is going to be a unique year just because of the weather and how early the spawning activities seem to take place. But a lot of the tactics that we used years ago we're still using, and a lot of the spots we fished years ago we're still fishing. But the technology, I think, has been the biggest shift in the fishing industry for myself. And I again, with Andrew, I've always been a Lowrance guy. The boat that I have now had all Humminbird units in it, and so kind of a new learning curve, and I'm kind of getting back into the Lowrance market a little bit more. But that's opened our eyes to a lot of spots that we never would have even thought to fish. And the spot that Andrew's talking about, I remember watching him drift down the river and stop on the spot, and I'm like, what the heck's he doing? And I'm like, whatever, because we weren't catching any fish. And all of a sudden I got the text, which is supposed to be when you start catching fish, you get a text or a call that says, hey, we're catching fish. But usually that doesn't come until you're too shy of your limit.
You've already filled it up. Yeah.
So I got that text, and, I didn't have the active target or, the live scope in my boat. But the next day I jumped in with Andrew and I got to kind of see it firsthand, and, it's a huge game changer, and it's obviously becoming kind of a point of contention in the fishing industry. But using those tools to your advantage, that's going to be huge because, like Andrew said, the fish are going to be more scattered. They may not be as consolidated, but, using the tools that you have at your disposal, and whether it's side imaging or, the old put your finger to the wind and find your spot. But I think you're going to have to be moving around, and you're going to have to be, looking for active fish. I don't think it's going to be a typical opener.
No, that's awesome. And, one question I've had now that, Andrew, you've had 2 years now experience with active target, and Ryan, this will be your first year, I think, right?
Yep.
So going back to the good old days, back when you were putting your finger up in the air and just fishing with the wind, How much has it really changed, do you think? Obviously, I know it's a game changer. Like I know I just got my new boat, and then this will be my first year running around with side imaging. And being completely honest, the first time I went out like 2 weeks ago with Kobe Ring, if you're listening to this, it was a hilarious day. We spent about 2.5 hours trying to figure out how to look at side imaging after watching hundreds of hours of videos and had no idea what I was doing. So going back from like, when you guys grew up with fishing, fishing with Rick and with your dad and with Terry and all those guys, and you just knew your spots. Like that's the thing I love about those, the old timers, I'll just call them. But like you go to whatever reef it was, whatever island it was, they had a name for, if it was Crazy Horse, whatever it was, they had all these different names for these spots, and they're always just good. But the technology we have now and stuff, how does that compare to like back then? Is there some truth to like that old wisdom from those old timers of where it's like they just figured it out by gritting their teeth, and like nowadays you can just instantly lock into those spots just by finding those fish?
Yeah, I would say that those spots that were good then are still good spots. It's not like, some of the technology is probably just verified that maybe those are the best spots on the lake, but it's also probably the most unique thing is, I can remember going to like those old classic spots where you're driving and you're trying to look between this island here and that tree, and you're trying to find the reef. And then as soon as you hit the reef, you throw a buoy out. And the biggest difference is, when I go out and when Ryan and I started fishing, and you guys too, there was still a 2D version. We started with some version of a 2D. So you would be able to locate fish, but what you didn't know was where the difference in technology is, you'd go over fish and you'd be like, oh, there's some fish there. And then you kind of keep moving, maybe mark a few more fish. Well, what the new technology and the biggest difference is you can pinpoint, to the point where you're looking at side imaging over here and side imaging over here. And you go, I didn't just go over 2 fish. I went over 50 fish. I went over 100 fish. And then you kind of move along, and then you notice, oh yeah, there's maybe 2 fish here, 2 fish there. But then that's when you just, instead of spending your time trolling through the whole, whatever you're fishing, weed line, or in this case, a reef, you just whip right around, you get right back on top of those fish, the big school, and then you fish them, and then you can almost follow the school around. And that's where the technology has changed. In addition to going and finding new spots, like we talked about on the river, pulling up to these reefs that are, for us, if pulling up to a reef that's, it might be a half mile long by a half mile wide. Some of them are smaller, but they're big reefs, and they hold fish all throughout that system. So to be able to pull up to it, I can drive up now, and you can side scan off to both sides and very quickly determine, all right, throw a waypoint here. Okay, we'll throw a waypoint here. We'll wheel back around. And this time of year, with pitching jigs at them, then I'll get, within 40 or 50 feet of them, and I'll spot lock, and then we'll just throw jigs at them from there. And then you can just sift through the schools really quickly and determine if your presentation needs to change, if they're not active and you need to move on to a different school or whatever, so it's changed my approach, to a whole new level where I just come in with 4 different rod setups ready to go, with a jig wrap and a jig and a bobber setup and a trolling rigging rod. And then you just cycle through those presentations on those fish. And if it doesn't work, then you're like, okay, we're moving to the next school, or the next spot. So.
Yeah. I really think the mapping has changed the industry a lot too. And the fisheries that we fish, particularly Rainy Lake, because Rainy Lake, it's not difficult to navigate, but it's not the type of lake where you can just drop in and go anywhere you want to go. I mean, you kind of got to know where you're going. There's rocks, reefs, navigation channels and those types of things. And I think prior to the current GPS mapping systems that everybody has in their boats now, people just lack the confidence to go out and navigate these areas just, I think I know how to get through here. And, there were areas that we'd go into and, going off of local knowledge or whatever. And I mean, we bumped into a few rocks here and there, but just having that confidence to go out and, and identify structure and, navigate channels and, look for spots that look juicy on the map and then going in and then, like Andrew said, I mean, I side imaging for me was something that when that technology first came out, I was like, that's a bass fisherman's tool, like that's for bass fishermen. And the first time that I used side imaging, I'm like, wow, I've been missing out. I use my side imaging every time I go out fishing, and Lake of the Woods isn't as much of a structure lake necessarily. It's more of a basin. So you're not looking for those reefs, or you're not looking necessarily for that structure, but you might be looking for a subtle change from like a mud to a gravel or a mud to a harder bottom. And it's just these subtle little transitions that you wouldn't know existed unless you had this technology. And once you can key in on those and find those spots and you start marking spots on your map, all of a sudden, it's turned me into such a better fisherman just because it gives me the confidence, to take a lake like Lake of the Woods and break it down and say, all right, this isn't such a scary animal anymore. Now, all right, I'm going to go here and I'm going to go here. Because if you go out and you're just haphazardly running around and trying to find these spots, you're going to burn up a lot of time, where this new technology you just key right in on it.
That's a good point, right? Because especially if folks are going out and fishing, doing opener this year on say a new body of water, using those map features to, if you pull up to a spot and there's a ton of boats out there, for example, and if you see they're catching fish, or, it looks like it's a good spot because there's 20 boats on it, this is what I've learned a lot on some of the lakes that I live on in the Brainerd area, because there's traffic out here, is, just looking at the features of that spot on your map, what are you looking at there? What are they fishing? Is it shallow? Is it a big, long, gradual sandbar? Is there weeds there? Is it a ridge or a weed line with a steep drop off next to it? Is it a saddle? Is there a point there? And then, if you scan out and just look at your map, there's going to be other features or other similar pieces of structure on that body of water. And that's where the fish, the technology to me has just made, like to Ryan's point, it's made me a more diverse fisherman and a better fisherman, because instead of, just going to that spot, I've just learned to go and fish other spots. And more often than not, when I study those features and I go and duplicate that in another spot, more often than not, there's fish there. It might not be the same amount of fish as you know what I mean? But you go there and you're the only boat, and then you're fishing an untouched school, So that's probably the biggest lesson that, or like to Ryan's point with the mapping, that's changed things too.
Yeah. And there's a steep learning curve to it too. I mean, that's the hardest thing for people, is that you get frustrated. And I did too, and Andrew was kind of the pioneer for me on side imaging too. And I remember the first time I looked at his graph and I'm like, he's like, oh yeah, okay, well there's this is a ledge and there's a fish and there's a fish. And I'm like, like, what are you talking about? It's, and the shadows.
That's
and whatever.
the boat that I'm in.
Yeah. So, and I have countless hours sitting in my boat with YouTube in one hand and playing with my graph to get settings dialed in, and out on the lake, sitting there just staring at the screen constantly and being like, just educating yourself. And, it's just getting out there and spending time with it and using it. And there's no shortcuts to that. You have to just go out and use it and experience it. And, once you get to that level where you're confident in what you're seeing on the bottom with that technology, it's completely game changing.
Yeah. And Ryan says I was the pioneer. I have to give the credit off to Tim Hansky, because he and Toby Kavalava, because Toby took me fishing once and I saw what happened and I was like, I'm buying Active Target. And then Tim took me out and we fished Mille Lacs one day, and he was showing me how to find fish on side imaging, and we smacked the walleyes and smallies, and I was like, I'm buying that technology. So those guys both really, to Ryan's, have coached me up on that stuff too. So it's awesome.
Sure. And you brought up a good point, Andrew, with talking about mapping and understanding new bodies of water. And like I've been lucky to film a couple of the local legends, through the last couple of years of, just doing random outdoor stuff with ABO and whatnot. And those guys are awesome. And the time that I wish I could go and fish with them with now, knowing what I know now, because I'd probably understand what they were talking about before. But like sitting in the boat filming those guys, they were just talking in just a different language that I understood. And it was like, so it's been, I'm sure for you guys, it's been fun to learn from people like that.
Yeah.
And, you through time, you get to learn and understand the lake. Like you guys grew up on Rainy, you guys know probably like by the back of your hand by now. But taking on that new challenge, and I feel like maybe that's a little bit of a journey for a fisherman to become a better fisherman, is taking the knowledge you learned from one lake and then rinsing and repeating that in another lake or a new body of water. And we have that same technology with like Onyx and stuff we use for hunting all the time, highlighting saddles, highlighting different terrain features, and that's kind of the similar world with fishing. What are some of those things that Ryan, you said you spent a lot of time in your boat just going through your maps and stuff, like maybe just I'm kind of closing out here for some tips and tricks. Like when someone is going and attacking a new body of water like that, what are some terrain features maybe that you're looking on Navionics on your phone and then relating that back to your mapping on your Hummingbird or your Lowrance, whatever that is? Is there like specific things, you guys are looking from, if it's mud to sand or saddles or whatever that is, for just new bodies of water for people getting out fishing?
Yeah, I think it really depends on the lake that you're fishing, obviously. And kind of understanding that. I mean, I'm going to use Rainy and Lake of the Woods again because I'm really familiar with those bodies of water, but you could not have two, the south end of Lake of the Woods and Rainy Lake, you could not have two more opposite bodies of water. They are completely opposite of each other. I think it is about, studying the map and just kind of looking at, those transitions. When I'm looking at a reef, I'm the kind of guy, I like to see those inside turns, and I like to kind of focus on those areas, just kind of those, and it doesn't have to be these big graduals or these big extreme, turns. It could just be subtle little transitions. And, it's just keying in on those things, and just spending the time ahead of the game to study the body of water, look at the maps, try to get a feel for what's working.
Oops. I get interrupted again. Yeah, for sure. That's where with those bodies of water, that's the key, just finding structure, points, inside turns, anything with deep water around it, and it all depends on the time of year too, as the walleyes are following different bait fish around, central Minnesota, and more of what I would consider, more of the weed, shallower, weedier lakes, it's a different, it's a totally different world too. Right. And, I've had to learn it the last, 7 years as I've moved back home here and readjust what I'm looking at for maps. And it's a lot of the same to what Ryan pointed out: inside edges, rock structure. But I mean, it's been really fun, finding fish on these weed lines, and, where it's, the difference between weeds that are in, say 6 or 7 feet of water versus weeds that are in 12 feet of water, or weeds that are sometimes out in as deep as 18 feet of water. And then learning sort of what, is it weed with sandy pockets in between it? Is it just like a heavy, dense weed line, along the edge? Or, is there places where, you can find slots where there's more flat, gravelly, sandy, spots where you can pick out, and those fish will be sitting in those gaps as well. Like, Leech Lake is a great example of that. And so I think there's so much variety that it's, from lake to lake. And then, we have some family that fishes lakes, even further south from here, and they're, they're fishing weed lines that are, the edges and the little pockets that they've found that hasn't been on mapping, that they have to go out there and actually be on the water for. I like to just, on these types of lakes, I honestly just like to, find those weed edges and just drive along it and side scan, and then waypoint fish as I go. And then, you pitch at it. And on these lakes, on Rainy, if you're marking fish at 22 feet, it's a walleye down there. And these lakes, you don't know. It could be bass, walleyes, could be panfish, crappies, and that used to kind of annoy me, but now I enjoy it. If you pitch out and you pull in an 18.5 inch, largemouth for Minnesota standard, that's a good fish. And so you pull that in and you throw it out and you catch another one, you go, okay, those are bass, and then you just keep moving and finding the next bunch of fish,
Yep. Yeah. And there's days I think too, where, the fish just aren't really wanting to cooperate. And so diversifying yourself a little bit, we've tried, I would say maybe the last 4 or 5 years, we've kind of tried some different tactics on Rainy Lake that, if somebody pulled a bobber out in front of me 10, 15 years ago on Rainy Lake, I would have laughed them out of the boat, and so, we've gotten in some situations recently where we're going over piles of fish and it's like, they're in an area where they should, you should be catching fish and it's going over them. And, so it's like, all right, obviously this isn't working. Let's try this. This isn't working. Let's try this. You just kind of keep changing things up and just being diverse a little bit. And, on Lake of the Woods, I've started getting into lead core more later on in the summer when the fish kind of get a little more lethargic and lead core and dipsy divers. And I've got notes upon notes in my phone and then in my box. When I open up my box, every one of my lures has a note on it, at this speed, it's this depth, at this speed, it's this depth. And, so keeping that information, and trying not to repeat the same mistakes over and over again. And, and we're not all full-time fishermen. And so we only get so much time in the water and we want to be successful. So I go back to those notes all the time. And there's a lot of times that I don't know what the heck I was talking about that day, but there is a lot of good information in there too, that I'm like, all right, I'm going this fast. It's this lure, this many feet of line, and then boom, we're fishing, versus spending 20 minutes trying to get set up. And, so that information is key to getting set up and getting fishing right away.
Love it.
Man, you guys are an absolute wealth of knowledge.
Yeah, I know.
We talk a big game.
Yeah, you guys obviously know a ton, and it's awesome, and it speaks for itself when you guys are out there and having success, and I'd say boots on the ground, but you're on the water, so putting boots in the boat maybe, but yeah, but no, kind of changing it up here before we don't want to keep you guys on here too long because it's getting late, but kind of just talking a little bit more on and kind of closing on this, but kind of where you guys kind of see that intersection of kind of faith and fishing and just kind of being out and kind of God's creation and being out on the boat, whether it's early in the morning or right before sunset, and just kind of where do you guys kind of see or feel kind of God's presence out there, or lessons, that you can kind of learn from being out there?
Yeah, I think, for me, it's a release. It's, getting out and just kind of, and that's like, we keep going back to Rainy, obviously that's where our roots are, but up at our cabin on Rainy Lake, there's no cell phone service. And oftentimes we go out in the boat and it's just too easy not to, fishing slow. It's just too easy not to take the phone out and start, in the slow times. And on Rainy Lake, it's like, for me, it's a place where I can go and I can set my phone in the cabin and I can just completely unplug and completely reset. And I know leaving that place that I'm going back a better dad, I'm going back a better person, just coming back completely, refreshed and reset and ready to, come back and just feel better about myself. And, and for the outdoors, a lot of, for me personally, that's what the outdoors is just that getting away from the hustle and the bustle, and just getting away and just, just kind of connecting with nature, and just, unplugging from everything, and just enjoying myself. And that's my mechanism. That's my counseling. That's my guidance counseling on, I go out and I just sit and I think, and that's how I use the outdoors to, I guess, to my advantage.
Yeah, that's
Love it.
awesome, right? Yeah, the outdoors in general, hunting and fishing for me was a turning point for me in my faith, and when I would say, sort of recommitted my life to Christ and went on a mission trip to Alaska, and then it's sort of continued to remain that avenue for me to open up conversations with other people. Are you guys doing this? And then also for me in my personal journey, and now sharing that with my brother-in-law Evan, with my dad in particular. Whether it's my dad, wanting to read a prayer in the boat before we go out, right? Or sitting at the hunting shack in the morning with the lantern on, and he's got his prayer book out, and we're having a conversation about something. And obviously, to Ryan's point, we're fortunate in that both of the places where our traditions are established, our cabin on Rainy Lake, our family cabin, and then our hunting shack in I Falls are both places that you don't self-service doesn't exist. And so it forces you to quiet your mind and sort of let your heart and your soul speak a little bit in those times. And that's just I can't, as I've gotten older, especially the blessing that is, just to have that is incredible. And so I could talk for a long time about this, but I think that, for me, the outdoors is just such an incredible gift, and it's a really great vessel, to grow both personally and to engage other people in that journey, whether it's taking them out fishing or hunting, or your kids or your other family members or whatever. I've had some just amazing conversations in my boat or on a drive, going out to a hunting trip or whatever the case is. It just invites that type of soul searching type conversation. So huge part of my life, huge part of my faith journey, and something that I definitely am blessed to have experienced.
That's beautiful from both of you guys.
Yeah.
I mean, like you guys kind of talked about earlier, the fact that you don't want to like force something on your kids, whether it's fishing, whether it's hunting, but it's kind of hard almost sometimes not to, because you see the good that comes out of it. You see the interconnectedness you get with your family, with Christ, with God, and it's like what Andrew was just saying about being so therapeutic, and with you, Ryan, being your guidance counselor, the outdoors. I mean, it's the same for me, and I'm sure it's the same for many sportsmen out there, because it is that time where you can just disconnect from society and just be able to be one with nature, be present in that exact moment. You don't have text messages dinging you. You don't have social media, and it's just, there's so much beauty that comes into it. And that's, obviously like you guys know, a big reason why Evan and I wanted to do this podcast. But I mean, if that's one thing that I could try and push out to the world, that's it right there, because there's so much
For sure.
beauty and peace that comes out of it, where I just think a lot more people, in the just general sense of the term, would just be a lot more relaxed and happier. I know just myself too, it just kind of,
I'm relaxed right now.
yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So no,
Yeah.
I love it, man.
Yeah. One thing with all that too, and speaking on it a little bit, and we'll definitely be having some different podcasts coming out here probably in the next month or two. This month is mental health. Wow, cannot talk today. Mental Health Awareness Month, and next month is Men's Mental Health Awareness Month, and talking about just our interconnection with nature and with God, and just the peace and the tranquility we get from just being in the outdoors. It doesn't matter if it's fishing or if it's hunting, but like the one thing I appreciate about fishing is like it's such an opportunity we talked about in our first podcast, if you're in boundary waters, in a canoe, or like looking up for these opportunities you have when you're in a boat with somebody, it's you and whoever's in your boat, and you're in the middle of nowhere enjoying the peace and just the relaxation of fishing. And I always laugh when people ask, it's like, why do you like to fish? Well, it's like, well, I could care less if we catch fish. It's like, it's just about being out and just enjoying the moment and in company with people, and having those tough conversations sometimes, like those, so those are, I don't know, that's where I just appreciate fishing. And yeah, sometimes it could be frustrating, and I'm still in the world of just relearning everything again.
Yeah.
So
right.
it's really good. And I seriously appreciate both you guys for jumping on and just spewing out some awesome wisdom and some insight. And we have a lot more stories to tell, so we're excited to have you guys on again here.
Yeah.
Probably in the next couple months, we'll do one in person. But we always like to close it out with a prayer. So I'm going to throw it on you guys, spitballing it. Whoever wants to do it, run with it. Ryan, Andrew, any takers?
I can do it.
All right.
Yeah. Well, you got it, right?
No, you got it. You're a savant.
All right, guys. Well, I'm Catholic, so I always start in the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Heavenly Father, thank you for the opportunity to come on the podcast tonight with Evan and Luke and Ryan and talk about our passion for fishing and the outdoors in general. We thank you so much for the gift that you've given us to be able to enjoy the outdoors, enjoy the animals and the fish you've given up to harvest, but also to do it with our family and friends, and to have time to step away and to enjoy the beautiful world that you've given us. We pray for everyone that's going out to be out for a fishing opener, that you give them safety in their travels, safety out on the water, and just loads of fish in their boat. And we also just want to thank Evan and Luke for putting this podcast together, and we just pray for blessings on the work that they're doing, and that you can help in growing this podcast and the work that they're trying to do to serve you. We ask this in Jesus' name. Amen. Father, Son, Holy Spirit.
Amen.
Amen. Gentlemen, get my hat back on. I always got the crazy hat here. But so everyone listening, this episode will drop the Monday here before fishing opener. Obviously, they have a little bit of a week ahead of time, but good luck to everybody out there getting out fishing. Be sure to share some photos with us. We want to hear your guys' stories and see your guys' successes out on the lakes. I know we'll probably capture some fun content on Saturday. Luke, I wish you could join us. So good luck fishing in the land of no lakes.
I will be fishing for turkeys.
Fishing for turkeys. Not a bad thing to be doing either.
No, definitely not. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Awesome. Well, guys, thank you so much again for taking time out of your night. And thank you, everybody that's listened. And we'll see you next time.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
See you guys.
Thank you for joining us on this journey through faith in the great outdoors. We hope today's episode has inspired you to seek God's presence in the wilderness and deepen your connection with nature. If you enjoyed today's discussion, don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe to the Wild Faith Podcast on your favorite platforms, including Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. By subscribing, you'll never miss an episode, and you'll continue to be a part of the Wild Faith Podcast community. We'd also love to hear from our listeners, so please don't hesitate to reach out with your questions, comments, or topic suggestions. You can connect with us on social media or through our website. Your feedback is important to us and helps us improve and tailor our content to better serve you. And always remember, the great outdoors isn't just a playground for hunting and fishing. It's a sanctuary for finding solace and spiritual renewal. As you gear up for that next adventure, I pray you find God's presence in the crackling of a campfire, the thrill of reeling in your catch, or the quiet solitude found in nature. Until next time, thank you for listening to the Wild Faith Podcast. Take care, and God bless.